was that the Maui Planning Commission, quote, shall make specific findings with regard to proposed conditions and the basis for the conditions. Sacred Earth Assembly was gratified to see this requirement included in the January 24th LUC order. At the Land Use Commission hearing held on November 6, 2019, Land Use Commissioner Gary Okuda raised and discussed several very important First Amendment freedom of religion issues. Issue 2 in the LUC order is a direct result of Commissioner Okuda's discussion on this topic at the Land Use Commission hearing. Commissioner Okuda specifically asked whether other churches in Maui County have been held to specific days and times of offering services. He asked why they were being, he asked about the restrictive conditions identified by the Maui Planning Commission, if they were necessary, and why they were being imposed on the Sacred Earth Assembly. Commissioner Okuda raised the issue how when it comes to churches, if there are any restrictions imposed by the government, it must show that the restriction must be imposed in order to serve a compelling government interest. Further, the restriction imposed must be the least restrictive means possible to achieve the compelling governmental interest. In light of this First Amendment issue, Sacred Earth Assembly requests that the restrictive conditions which Maui Planning Commission intends to impose upon Sacred Earth Assembly and its Special Use Permit 1, that the Maui Planning Commission identify and, quote, make specific findings with regard to the proposed conditions. Due to the importance and the basis of them, certainly. So, with respect to the Planning Condition 1 stating that the special permit will be valid for 1 year, we believe that a 1-year term is too restrictive and could unnecessarily hamper the efforts of Sacred Earth Assembly to get its ministry established. Given the length and expense of the special use application and hearing process, which has occupied a great deal of time, money, and energy over more than 3 years, Sacred Earth Assembly asked the Maui Planning Commission to reconsider granting the requested SUP for a period of 3 to 5 years. Especially after the devastating impacts of COVID-19 on this island and everybody on it, major investments have to be made to operate a church in a pandemic. We need time to build the ministry through strategic planning, fundraising, and program development. To insist that the church return in 1 year for additional scrutiny without cause is unduly restrictive and is a burden on Sacred Earth Assembly. Regarding Maui Planning Commission 10, that a certificate of occupancy shall be required for all church-related structures prior to the initiation of operation, and the requirement of Condition 4 that any amplification of sound or music at an event shall occur inside, SEA recognizes the importance of having approved fire protection and a certificate of occupancy prior to holding church services in the church building. However, this process will take considerable time and expense, delaying the beginning of the services SEA wishes to provide the community. Because there is a large, flat, grassy lawn out in front of the church building, SEA will be able to offer interfaith services outdoors with ample social distancing as soon as its permit is approved with this change that we're requesting. With congregants appropriately spread out, transmission of the virus will be eliminated. However, some sound amplification will be required in order for everyone to hear. So SEA asks that the stipulation that all amplification be limited to indoors be removed from the approved conditions. Especially in these times of social isolation and despair associated with COVID-19, it is more important than ever for people to have a place to find spiritual refuge and community connection. In my practice as a psychologist, I'm seeing a lot of people with anxiety disorders and depression and suicidality coming up because they feel socially isolated and their future is uncertain in terms of their work and livelihood. SEA requests that it be able to commence church-related activities immediately upon the permit being approved by holding such services outdoors on the land, included for church use with amplification. Services are to be held in accordance with Maui County COVID-19 guidelines about social distancing and in compliance with standard sound decibel ordinances. The COVID-19 pandemic has created an immediate need for our church to provide safe outdoor services, especially when it is impractical for most Maui County churches to ensure the kind of social distancing that is required. As an interfaith ministry, SCA is ready to welcome people from all denominations who may be hesitant or unable to attend their usual indoor church services. Regarding the Maui Planning Commission Condition 5, as a family-friendly ministry, it is important that we are available to meet on the weekends, since that is when families are more likely to be able to attend together. Sacred Earth Assembly asserts its right to practice its religion and hold services at times that meet our congregation's needs. In consulting with our congregants from different faiths, many Christian congregants requested family-friendly programming on Sunday afternoons following Sunday morning services offered by other churches in the community. For people with Jewish background who celebrate Shabbat, it is traditional to meet for prayer from Friday evening through Saturday evening. As such, we respectfully submit that the current MPC imposed limit to allow church activities only 6 Saturdays in a year, or now 3, is far too restrictive on the practice of our religion. We ask that the Saturday restriction be removed. Furthermore, during the COVID crisis, SCA asserts that it will abide by official guidelines regarding approved interior and exterior group size. Otherwise, SCA requests that it be treated the same as other churches in Maui County, in which the maximum number of congregants is defined by the certificate of occupancy determined by the fire department. Regarding MPC Condition 4, regulating hours and noise levels, SCA asks that it be granted the same consideration as any of its neighbors in agricultural zoned areas regarding the curfew time for amplified sound, which in our understanding is 10 p.m. rather than 9 p.m. termination time imposed by the MPC. Similarly, we respectfully submit that prohibiting church activities before 8 a.m. is inappropriately restrictive. In the Buddhist, Hindu, and Taoist traditions, meditation and energy cultivation exercises are often practiced in the early morning hours just after dawn. Some congregants may wish to practice before going off to a typical work day. If regulated at all, we request that church activities be allowed to start at 6 a.m. It is important to note that in agricultural areas, farmers routinely start up loud diesel tractor engines and generators before dawn. So there is no reason to limit much quieter and less impactful early morning church activities. LUC Issue 3. The MPC will make specific findings whether or not the actual use of the church is related to any agricultural use of the property. I already addressed that. LUC Issue 4. The MPC shall make specific findings as to whether or not traffic impacts need to be addressed and finding made with regards to those matters. The Department of Transportation approved the SCA's SUP1 and stated in their recent letter that no significant traffic impacts are anticipated. Unlike the characterization of it being a hairpin turn, there is approximately 1,000 feet of visibility in either direction, maybe 1,000 in one and 800 in the other, near the farm's Hana Highway driveway entrance. In the past 13 years that we've occupied Ahimsa Sanctuary Farm, to our knowledge, there have not been any car accidents or collisions in the immediate entrance area. SCA congregants will be instructed to carpool as much as possible, to drive slowly, and to put on their turn signals well ahead of the driveway entrance. And I'm not opposed to having a traffic monitor at larger religious activities as well. LUC Issue 5. The MPC shall make a finding with regards to the impact on the shared water system, whether it is adequate for the project without causing detriment to the other users. A study has been submitted, and it's in your record, from engineer Neil Nishida after his review of the water system and its history of use. In it, Mr. Nishida described his finding that the well has been providing ample water for the subdivision's needs when running at about 50% of its capacity.
10 minutes.
Additional demands for church use, even if the congregation grew, will be negligible, and there is no evidence that it might cause detriment to other users. SEA's efforts to reach out to the neighbors who are party to the water agreement have been met with resistance. But they have filed no formal legal complaints and have not sought to resolve their concerns as stipulated in the water agreement through mediation or, if necessary, binding arbitration, which we're completely willing to engage in. They have provided no evidence to back up their concerns about how SEA's water use would negatively affect them, and Neil Nishida, the engineer's study, provides counter data to that. We will continue to pay for any water we use by paying our proportional share of the well pump electric bill based on the consumption indicated by the water meters. LUC Issue 6. The MPC shall make specific findings regarding the history of zoning violations. That has been addressed already. They've all been resolved. A review of the record shows that all recent complaints have been received, that they originated with Michelle Jr., a difficult neighbor who has exhibited a pattern of harassment of our family over the past 13 years. Ms. Jr.'s complaints have been spurious, have been checked out and closed by the planning department. There is no reason that such complaints should impact the conditions for this project. SEA intends to comply with all special use permit guidelines and to remain responsive to communications from neighbors. In summary, Sacred Earth Assembly is deeply grateful for MPC's approval of its special use permit in September 16th meeting. SEA understands and accepts most of the conditions described when the SUP was approved. Consistent with the First Amendment issues raised by the state LUC, SEA asks only for a re-examination of the few of the conditions stipulated by the Maui Planning Commission pursuant to the First Amendment. Sacred Earth Assembly is asking the Maui Planning Commission to specify the factual basis and justification which each restrictive condition is being imposed. For example, only a few Saturdays. SEA is asking the Maui Planning Commission to adjust the language to reflect the least restrictive options for governmental regulation of our church activities. We wish to remain flexible so that we can respond to the needs of our community and not be pinned to specific days and times for services. I don't believe you ask that of any other churches. Most importantly, we ask the MPC to allow Sacred Earth Assembly to begin serving the Maui community without further delay, beginning with socially distanced outdoor services. We have a large lawn out in front of the temple where we can allow for people to bring their blankets and be 10 feet apart and participate, but it does mean that we would need some amplification so that the people could hear. Thank you for taking time to give this matter, Sacred Earth Assembly's needs, and the value it offers the community careful consideration. Again, I apologize for any intensity or interrupting. It's just that many issues were raised that I didn't have a chance to address, particularly the water issue. In the water agreement, it says that no lawsuits are possible, that any disputes are to be mediated or be taken to binding arbitration. And we will abide by that. And if we need to, we have a water tank. We can have water delivered to serve the needs of the temple, the church, Sacred Earth Temple. So that should not be a reason to decline us today. I know this is difficult. Thank you for your careful consideration. Please recognize that we're doing something worthwhile for the community. Thank you so much.